Hey everybody, this is Rams Up. We got a treat for you today. We are going to do our draft roundtable. I have a couple of guests with us from the East Coast. Paul Walia, how you doing, Paul?
Doing fantastic. Rams up to the whole worldwide Ramelia. How you all doing? Always nice to see Mark and Tom, my favorite Ram fans across the country.
And then from the Central Valley of California, Tom Courts. How you doing, Tom?
Hey, great. This is a great day. We're going to be picking the Rams' future, fill some of those gaps so they can go and repeat. And we had a good brain trust here to help them out. I'm sure that Sean and Les are listening. So, guys, take notes.
Yeah, and let me try to explain for our listeners and viewers how this is going to work. This is not going to be your conventional mock draft. What we are doing is we have identified a draft board, a big board that we're going to use, CBS Sports, for better or worse, downloaded as of like 4 or 5 days ago. And then we identified using that board which players are likely to be available. For example, pick 104. We know some guys always slip slit. So we said, let's just say player 94 and below is available at that point. And we're going to take turns taking the picks. Once someone makes a pick, if Paul picks a player, I cannot pick that same player. So we're going to have draft halls that are unique for all three of us. And like I said, we'll take turns making the picks. Let's see. We have an opening question that I wanted to get out there for everybody. We'll start with Paul. If you had to bet, what 5 positions are you convinced the Rams should draft?
So the 5 positions that I would earmark, number 1 would be O-line. O-line depth is absolutely essential to any team, especially when you're talking about a 17-game season plus playoffs. So that would be primary, number 1. I would also take a look at our secondary, safety and corner. That would be number 2. A running back that could handle short yardage and goal line. Also edge, add to the edge depth. We have 3 solid linebackers. Would love to get that number a little bit higher. And lastly, if available, take a look at the wide receiver scenario. I have 1 more wide receiver that we could add to the mix. Those would be my 5.
Yeah, that seems pretty solid. I know McVay, I have a feeling he's going to pick a wide receiver every year.
He takes a running back every year too. It's interesting.
Yeah, right. Okay, I don't have too much of an issue with that. How about you, Tom? What are your 5 positions?
Yeah, I think those are pretty solid. I think that O-line and cornerback are the 2 biggest needs of the team, and they will go into those early, I believe. I think that they do like to take running backs and safeties and inside linebackers in the draft, just because those are positions that they don't typically like to pay for, and so always need a lot of depth there. And then the other need right now that could be considered, I think the third priority is edge. We're a little light there after Von Miller left. And Owaronko left. So get a little more depth there, but I would say those are the key areas of focus.
I think mine aligned pretty closely with yours, Paul. My number 1 was cornerback. I just feel like we need bodies there. And actually, I was tempted to say cornerback twice, but I won't do that. I actually emphasized the offensive line, and I named interior as well as tackle, 1 of each. And then the other 2 were edge and running back. And the reason I say running back is I like all 3 of our running backs, but they all have had significant injuries. Well, Darrell Henderson, not so much a significant injury, but he always seems to be banged up, misses a lot of action. But Cam and Jake have both had serious injuries. So, yeah, I think they need to add a running back. And it was kind of a coin toss with me, running back or safety. Next year, we're going to need safeties for sure. So maybe they wait till next year on that. But those were my 5. We have some additional questions we'll get to at the end of our little draft here. So we'll save those for later. We'll get right into our draft. You guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So the first pick we had, we're going to let Paul go first. And what we're showing here on the screen, for those of you that are watching, is the 15 or 20 players that, according to CBS, would likely be available. This is not an exact science, of course. It's not an exact science. It's our best guess. And that's what mock drafts are all about. And so you just take your time, Paul, and let us know what your pick is.
Yeah, so pretty much taking a look at the Rams strategy and trying to, right, obviously our goal is to try to predict what they're going to do or what they should do theoretically. So I'm going to stay in line with a lot of the themes that Les Snead and Sean McVay have pretty much been consistent with over the years. So they like multi-year starters, guys that are generally seniors. They love guys that have shown up at the Senior Bowl. They pay a lot of attention to like character. For example, was it a team captain? Things of that nature. So those are some of the themes that you're going to see across the board when I take a look at my picks. So I was really, really tempted here when I was looking here because Jamari Salyer from Georgia, he's one of my favorite players in the draft. But when it comes to scheme fit, sometimes you have to go with what's more practical. So I went with Liam Coleman as our offensive coordinator this year. He comes from the University of Kentucky, SEC pride. So I will say this. I know he's got one of his players, if you look right there at 110, good value for us. So I went with Luke Fortner from Kentucky. I know he's going to be in Sean McVay's ear, one of my favorites. We talked about the themes just now about durability, positional flexibility, high football IQ, and positive character, and he just checks all the boxes. He started 36 games in the SEC, 23 at guard, 13 at center. He was named first team all SEC, and you know how I feel about the SEC in college football. That's like making the Pro Bowl in college football, right? He has familiarity with the pro-style system, and like I said, he had a solid showing at the Senior Bowl. I think he's got a tremendous value at 104. I don't think he would be there. His grade usually is round 3, round 4. I don't think he'll be there late in round 4 when we pick. So I think they should grab him now. Not the most glamorous pick in the world, I know, especially with Kobe Bryant sitting there at corner. But I think he's a great fit for the Rams. He has quality, can play both center and guard. And I think he will be a viable challenger for the open guard spot as well. This is like an Ernest Jones pick for me when you take a look at it. Drafting a player based on how it fits and just the character and the intangibles that it brings. So I really like this pick for the Rams.
He is a guy that I picked in possibly 2 of my mock drafts. And I had the same thought process, the Kentucky connection. And I also love Salyer as well. Okay, Tom, you want to chime in on that pick, or you want to just go right to yours?
Yeah, I think that that's a good pick at that position, but I think that he's going to go a little bit lower. I think he's going to slip down, and he may even be available at the next pick. But we'll see. But it's a solid pick. I like Salyer a lot better, at an earlier pick. So I think we're all in. Maybe Salyers are all of our number 2 pick. I'm not sure. We'll see what Mark says. But my pick at this position is Cam Taylor-Britt, cornerback from Nebraska. Good size, good length, very athletic. That kind of athlete at cornerback would be taken a lot earlier. Has to still learn some technique and positioning and things like that. But those are all things that can be learned. But his physical traits, is everything about him, his size and everything else, his competitive nature, leadership, ball skills, etc. He can play in both. Really importantly, obviously, the Rams have a zone-heavy scheme. Can play in zone and as well as press man, which is a really unique skill set for a cornerback. Even a lot of the veterans at cornerback in the NFL are kind of one or the other, oftentimes. So that kind of versatility is really important. And so he's a real strong, and I hope he's still there. He's a real strong player, and I think cornerback is our biggest need in the draft.
Yeah, when I was looking over this list for this first pick of ours, it's funny. I had Sawyer, Cam Taylor-Britt, and Kobe Bryant as my top three, and I was actually going to go with your guy, and I'm going to have to deflect here. I'm going to have to adjust, and I'm going to take Kobe Bryant with my pick. And I can't speak to these guys as much as you guys can. I know that my understanding of Kobe Bryant is he's an all-business cornerback, hard worker, and should be a really good zone fit. And with that name, he's gonna be really popular in LA the minute he gets off the airplane, right? He has to come
to Los Angeles.
Right. So that is my pick. So one round in, we have an offensive lineman and two cornerbacks. Now, hey, Tom, your guy, I read a little bit about him, and what's really attractive about him is he could probably play safety as well,
Mm-hmm.
It looks like, right?
Yeah, he has that kind of that size and that run, also a real good run defender, which is really a tackler, which is a real important feature for the Rams with that too high shell that they play. And there's a lot of quick outs. A lot of teams, as we know, throw a lot of screens to get the ball away from the middle, away from Donald and those and our edges. And the cornerbacks have to make tackles. And when they don't, we've seen it. Williams went on a little skid there for a while and wasn't tackling. And that's a really effective way for teams to beat our defense. And our cornerbacks, therefore, have to tackle.
This ranking system with the CBS Sports, this slot has 5 really good defensive backs, all legitimate for the Rams.
Yeah, and it gets a little thinner later.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way it broke down, because if you take a look at it, you have Tariq Woolen that everybody loves, that just destroyed it at the Senior Bowl and the Combine. You have Cam Taylor-Britt, you have Kobe Bryant. You also have Verone McKinley, who is really vastly underrated in this draft. He's a safety, can also jump down and cover the slot. He would also be a nice fit for the Rams. And then you have Evans, the corner from Missouri. He's another really big. You know who he reminds me of? Tom and Mark, tell me if this rings a bell. Tremaine Johnson. That's who he looks like when he plays. Obviously, he doesn't have that skill set just yet in terms of his play, but that's who he reminds me a lot of. He's like a lesser Tremaine Johnson. But it's interesting. Cornerback is a really nice target area in this round of the draft for the Rams, the way this ranking board broke out.
Yeah, and that was my thought process, and I was really leaning towards a cornerback because as I looked forward into the later rounds, there were not a lot of guys that jumped off the screen at me, so I figured I better get one early. But it looks like all three of us addressed what we consider to be key needs, cornerback and offensive line, so that makes sense. So if we go to the second round, Tom's going to lead the way here. Second pick, fourth round, number 142 overall. And these are some guys we've gotten in that area before. Micah Kaiser, Greg Gaines, Bryson Hopkins. So there's, if you hit one of these draft picks, it's a big payoff. Get a guy that can become a starter, sometimes as good as some of the first round picks from other teams. So fourth round, a lot of value still there. Tom's leading the way on this in this round. Who do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I think that I picked a cornerback in the first round, and so or with our first pick, I should say. And so this round, I'm going to go with an offensive lineman, a guard that I think would be a good fit for the Rams' zone run scheme. Cam Jurgens from Nebraska. Solid offensive lineman. He's a really, really good mover. He can move, and that's what the Rams need is guys that can get out into those into that zone run scheme, hit a block, move out to the second level, move wide, etc., and kind of explosive and have a lot of range. Sometimes a little undisciplined, but that can be kind of railed, kind of pulled in, and but doesn't have that sort of huge brute power of your typical guard. But he's big. He's 6'3", 300, which is kind of par for the course these days. But a guy that big that can move like that is is a real solid pick.
His numbers at the combine were just incredible. When he ran his 40, people thought it was a fullback that was running. It was absolutely incredible. So he would, yeah, you're absolutely right. He would flourish in his zone scheme. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm next up in this round, and now I don't consider edge to be as big a need as most. I mean, it's always a need. It's a matter of magnitude. I think offensive line and cornerback are more important. But I am not going to pass on D'Angelo Malone, the defensive end out of Western Kentucky. I saw a couple of mocks, and in one mock, I saw him going to the 49ers, and I was like, oh, no, we don't want that to happen. And that made me want to pick him even more. 49.5 tackles for loss over his final 39 games with 34 sacks total. A little concern about him is that I guess at the combine, he was in the 250 range. And at his pro day, he came in about 15 pounds lighter, which is really kind of odd. I think he needs to come in at the right weight that they're listing him at. I think it was around 250. But he's a playmaker. He's a difference maker. So, and again, same with the cornerbacks. There is an edge guy I like really late, and I may grab him as well. But I'm not going to pass on D'Angelo Malone here.
Great pick. Absolutely great pick. 32.5 career sacks. So his production matches his workout numbers. You're right. His only one knock is that they're saying he's awfully light, but isn't he a great oboe replacement? Right? He's got a crazy motor. They love his bend. They love his get off. So yeah, that's a solid pick. Absolutely.
Oh, you're too nice.
Yeah, he was one of my top three in this. He was one of my top three in this round as well. So good pick.
So now that Mark has forced my hand, because I love to take O lineman, but he's taken my D lineman that I was going to take, my outside linebacker. So I'm going to switch gears, and I'm gonna think a little bit like Sean McVay right now. I'm going to say, caution to the wind. I'm taking Alec Pierce, wide receiver for Cincinnati, who I think is one of the more underrated wide receivers. So you talk about clicking all the boxes, multi-year starter at Cincinnati. He was the go-to receiver for Desmond Ridder. I don't think he will be in the 4th round, but according to this mock, he is. So I'll grab him and think about this. He holds down the fort until Odell is ready and healthy. This kid, they used him as their jump ball wide receiver. So he was their high point wide receiver, contested catch wide receiver. And he goes to the combine and he ran like a 4.38, which was just off the charts. Great size, runs routes well. That's something they have to work with him on, how to run a full route tree, but absolutely perfect, would fit for the Rams. And should Odell not sign a multi-year deal, there's your 4th wide receiver. Talk about a great developmental fit long-term, and helps to help the Rams along while OBJ is nursing that knee. So I'm going to grab Alec Pierce.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Pierce is, so he's gone against 2 elite cornerbacks in practice every day too, right?
Sauce and Kobe Bryant, yeah.
Right.
And he went to the Senior Bowl, so they saw him at the Senior Bowl. Unbelievable character value. So, and think about it, he was a key player for Cincinnati. They had in their history, the greatest year in their history. So everything lines up really nicely. Great pick for the Rams.
Okay, so let me recap here so far. We're through 4 rounds, 2 picks each for the Rams. Paul has an offensive lineman and a wide receiver, 2 offensive guys. Tom, you have a cornerback and an offensive lineman, and I have a cornerback and an edge. And next up is we're into the 5th round, the Rams' 3rd pick, number 175 overall. I went way back and I found Greg Zuerlein right about there, as well as much more recent David Edwards, who's turned into a decent offensive lineman, right?
Our starting left guard, yeah.
Yeah, right. And in this round, I get to go first. Let me look at my cheat sheet real quick here. And the approach I took on this is I really tried to, and I don't know if NFL GMs work it like this, but you look at what positions are a strength in a given round and which ones are not. And I try to plan it out like that. And I already got my cornerback. There's one I like. There's a couple running backs I like, but I have one I'm going to try to grab later. So I'm going to go with an offensive lineman that I really like. And that's, let me make sure I get his first name right here, Andrew Stuber out of Michigan. So
Great
I'm
pick.
checking the offensive line box here. If I can elaborate a little bit on him here, I will. Let me find him. Now, I see him as possibly a replacement at right tackle if we cannot sign Rob next year. But I see some folks see him as a guard as well. So he's got some versatility. Comes out of a great program. I don't think there's anything super exciting about him. I just think he's a safe bet along the offensive line and a guy that could definitely handle the right side, the right tackle position with a little coaching up.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Character guy. He was one of the tri-captains for Michigan. You watch his tape; he just loves hammering people into the ground. But yeah, I think when you watch him play, that's what you see. You see Havenstein in a lot of ways. I think Havenstein's just a little bit more nimble, but yeah, that's a great pick. And with coaching, I think he'd be a solid right tackle. And at worst, like you said, he's a right guard.
Right. Yeah, it seems like that seems to be one of the most attractive traits of offensive linemen this year is a guy that is not penciled in as, oh, he's a left tackle, oh, he's a center, oh, he's a guard, a guy that can provide flexibility along that offensive line. And you've seen that with the Rams, the way they move guys around in response to injuries or poor play by one individual or another. So I was a little scared of him at first when they said he's a right tackle, but then I saw a lot of coaches saying that he could go inside and play one of the guard positions as well. So next up in this round is Paul.
Yeah, so I was, I'm an O-line guy. I was like tempted. I'm looking at Cordell Volson there, North Dakota State. This kid hasn't given up a sack in 3 years, right? He plays right tackle. Very similar to Stuber, but I have to give a shout out to the HBCUs. I went small school, Fayetteville State. I want to add to our secondary, Joshua Williams, one of my favorite players in the draft.
Good pick.
Just love this young man. You talk about being under the radar. This guy is under the radar. His school is under the radar. So HBCU, shout out to them. Gave us some of the best players in the history of the NFL, Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, et cetera, Deacon Jones. He put out some fantastic workout numbers at the Combine. He was the only D2 player selected to play at the Senior Bowl. So there it goes. There's one of the boxes being checked off right there. He was at the Senior Bowl. He was also selected as an HBCU College All-American. But what sets this kid apart is his nickname. They call him the Sponge. That's his nickname because he's always working out with the coaches, always trying to make his game better. The minute I read that, I said, he's our guy, right? That's what we want. We're a championship organization. We're a championship team. We want that in our locker room. We want that in our roster. We want that in our free agents and on our young kids coming in. And what you talk about being a sponge. How would you like to be in the locker room with Jalen Ramsey and Tyrann Mathieu? Soak all that up. So when you put all those variables together, what a great fit. I think he'll be great, a perfect fit for the roster, perfect fit for the system, and he will thrive in our off-ball zone system. He will be a Raheem Morris favorite from day one.
Yeah, when I was looking at cornerback in the first round, if you guys had taken Taylor Britt and Bryant and left me with another position, I was going to take him, Josh Williams, at this point.
Really attractive young man. I think he's going to do well.
All right, Tom, you're next up in this round. What do you got?
Oh boy, I have a player that I'm going to take, but I'm really tempted to take Dominique Robinson.
Nice.
An edge from Miami of Ohio. I feel like he's a freak athlete, and but I think he just needs too much development, and I think the Rams need somebody that can be a little bit more ready to play. But I think that guy's going to go. He's going to be a good player. I think that again, going back to our top needs, I'm going to pick another cornerback. I'm going to go with Damari Mathis from Pittsburgh.
Solid pick.
Yeah, this guy is exactly what the Rams love at cornerback. He's a great athlete, physical as all get out. That's probably his biggest weakness as well. He runs through, he gets a lot of penalties. He likes to run right through wide receivers. He's kind of intimidating, but again, out there in the corner, he's physical. He's a great tackler, great coverage skills. Again, can work in both the zone and the man, and I think that's another pick. And they might load up at cornerback, and I think there's a good chance they will. So that's my pick, Damari Mathis from Pittsburgh.
And he gets bonus points for coming from Pitt. So, Aaron Donald will be happy.
Oh yeah, there we go. Aaron Donald will be thrilled. Yeah, help
pick,
yeah.
Great scheme fit, character kid. Absolutely, that's a solid pick.
So you got two defensive backs and an offensive lineman at this point, Tom. I have a defensive end, a cornerback, and an offensive lineman. And Paul, what do you have? You have an offensive lineman, a wide receiver, and
corner.
So we all checked the cornerback box, so that's good. And I think that's really important. To me, I still feel like that's the biggest need. So we've all checked that box. Now we're getting into the next round, the next pick, which is we actually have 3 picks in this group that are. I just presented all of these players for all 3 of these picks, but the 211th pick, Paul will be going first. Is there anyone now? Remember, you can drop off this list and grab someone much lower, which is something I'm planning on doing, by the way, very soon here.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the questions you asked is what's going to surprise Ram fans in terms of the way the draft is going to be run this year. I think Les Snead has a habit. He always likes to trade down. Correct? That's what he loves to do. He likes to trade down. I think the Ram number 3 pick is so late in the 3rd. I think if he can get someone to take it and drop into the 4th and maybe get another extra pick and move some of his 7s to get another 5 and combine with a 6, because we have 3 6s, I think you're going to see him do that. I think he's going to compress the draft a little bit and try to get everything between the 4, 5, and 6. So just to say that, because when you take a look at the rankings and we probably all did the same thing, we reached for our favorites in the 6. And that's what I did. So I went right off of the rankings and went for a kid. There's no way he's going to be in the 7th round the way CBS has him. But we talked about, physicality. We need a running back to round off that core, a real dog. And this is the guy, Brian Robinson, running back, Alabama, a sledgehammer. So coming back to the SEC, the cream of the crop when it comes to college football. They need somebody who can run north and south. He's that type of back. I'm still surprised how low he generally gets slotted in the draft, but he's an absolute steal. at 225 pounds. The kid is a monster, great workout numbers. He also gets really high marks for his attitude. Now, remember, this guy sat behind Najee Harris. He sat behind Josh Jacobs, where I bet you like 99% of other kids would already hit the transfer portal. So he gets high marks for that, waited for his opportunity. And then what did he do? Destroyed Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl. 26 carries, 204 yards. So I just think, getting a player of this caliber so late in the draft is an absolute gift if he's available. And if the Rams can get him even earlier, I think they should. He's one of my favorites. Think of a running back stable with Cam the Ram, Hendo, and Brian Robinson. That would just be phenomenal. So I'm going to go with Brian Robinson first off in the 6th.
They definitely need to add a running back, so I understand that pick completely. He wasn't someone that was on my radar, I have to admit, though, but I know you've done a lot more research than I have. So I've probably looked into these guys 15% as much as you have, so you're going to probably find these diamonds in the rough that someone like me is probably going to miss. So you're up next, Tom. Who do you have for the 211th pick in the NFL draft? Are you on mute, Tom?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to go with the linebacker position. There's a really unique athlete that could drop down here. Brandon Smith from Penn State. 6'4", 250. Physically just really impressive. Great size. Great athlete. He's very raw. That's why he could kind of drop to this. And he's also kind of a tweener, right? He can play inside linebacker, but he can also potentially play edge. And so that, it's kind of that longer guy. But I think they kind of like that more. They like more of that kind of an athlete at inside linebacker than they do the Troy Reader, with the old 80s guy with the big brace around his neck, the big bulky guy, a lot more, has a lot more range and so forth. So he could be a good pick at this spot.
You know what they say, great minds think alike. He was my next pick.
That's great.
So his numbers, 6'3", 250. He ran 4.5 40. That was 4th amongst all linebackers. 5th best vertical, 4th best broad jump, right? And you absolutely nailed it on the head. But just can you imagine this kid hanging around with Bobby Wagner every day?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that. You talk about with all that physical skill, what he's going to acquire from being around Aaron Donald and Bobby Wagner. This kid, that's a great pick. Absolutely.
Yeah, he sort of has more of that Ernest Jones than he does the Troy Reader,
Absolutely. Physical specimen.
With my pick, 211th pick, I'm going to go with the number 3 guy on the list up there, Otito Ogbonnia, big defensive tackle, 326 pounds. He's a shot putter at UCLA as well. I read him as more of a bull rusher, but he can create pressure. Now, we haven't talked about defensive line much, but that is a position down the road, much like safety. They could be in some trouble if they can't retain some of these free agents. I don't know how they feel about Bobby Brown. If someone knows how they feel about Bobby Brown, please educate me because I have no idea. Same thing with Ernest Brown, the other defensive lineman they drafted last year. So I'm going to go with Ogbonnia. It's more of a look to the future. They develop him for a year, and if they cannot retain Greg Gaines or A'Shawn Robinson or neither of them, this is a guy that I think you could plug in the middle, and he could be really disruptive and solidify that defensive line in the years to come. Is that a guy that you guys had looked into at all? Have an opinion on him?
Yeah, very good pick, solid pick.
Yeah, good pick.
And that's what the Rams tend to do, right? They'll get somebody. They'll look who's going to be a free agent next year. We have our buddy A'Shawn's going to be. I mean, this kid's nowhere in the class of A'Shawn, but in terms of the kid's a nose tackle. They get really high marks for work ethic. Like you said, he's definitely skilled. He shot put. I think he has another actual. He's also a medalist in another arena as well. He's one of those. He's just a gifted athlete. So I think he's a great fit. Yep.
Okay, we're going to move on to the 212th pick. We'll leave this same slide up here, pretty much the same group of players. And Tom has the first pick. It'll be Tom, myself, and then Paul for this round.
Yeah. So notes here. Yeah. So I think there's a great pick here if he's still around. A tight end, James Mitchell from Virginia Tech. So he's exactly that. The type, the profile of tight end that the Rams like. He has that sort of Jacob Harris feel to him, where he could play either position. He could scoot out to the wide receiver. He's big, powerful. He's not one of these little shifty, he's not another Tutu Atwell, right? Or, in terms of going out wide and this and that. And I think the Rams want bigger guys. This is, again, somebody that could project out wide. They obviously ran Higbee wide a lot. He would go much higher in the draft if he didn't have some injury history. And so, but anyway, I think this is a 3-level guy, great body control strength, kind of starting that kind of almost like an H-back kind of a guy, very highly versatile for a McVay offense. And if he drops here, I think they could go after him.
Good job. I guess I'm up next, and I had said early on that I would be tempted to take 2 cornerbacks, and I'm going to do just that. I'm going to take Isaac Taylor Stewart out of USC. And what I like about him is that from the scouting reports on Taylor Stewart is that he has all the skills it takes to be a top-notch cornerback in the NFL. The speed, the athleticism, the size, everything. But he just has issues. I've got an airplane flying outside my studio here. I don't know if you can hear that. He just gets lost in coverage sometimes. Just isn't very disciplined, but definitely has a skill set. I would assume he'd be an excellent special teams guy. And I just want bodies in that defensive backfield really badly. And he seems like a guy that at this point in this draft, with his athleticism, speed, and size, take a flyer on this guy. Could be a big payoff.
Yeah, that's the first thing. They pull up his numbers all the time. His numbers are like outstanding, but you're absolutely right. Just hasn't put the package together for whatever reason. Great developmental pick, yeah.
You're on the clock, Paul. Not that we have a clock, but
all right.
You're on the clock.
All right. We always say, right, championships are won in the trenches. So I'm going to go into the trenches. Love this tackle, small school, North Dakota. Matt Wiletzko. I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and I got to tell you, he looks smooth. He is mammoth. 6'7", 315. He also ran at the combine, which I thought was really interesting this year. We had guys, O-tackles and guards running at the combine, which I thought was awesome. He ran a 5-second flat at the combine. And still, when you read the reports on him, not athletic enough. So I'm like, what more does a lineman have to do to get to the NFL? But he looked great. He looked smooth. I just loved his length. I just think with the Rams coaches and giving time to develop, he's like almost like a note boom scenario. Could play on either side probably. He had great finish, so he's tenacious in that regard. He started all 4 seasons. He did lose 1 season of injury, but was otherwise fairly durable. And like I said, he showed up at the Senior Bowl, made a positive impression. So for the 6th round, to get a tackle with that type of potential and already sort of his trajectory, he's far above other tackles that I've seen in this range in terms of his trajectory. So I think is a great value. Matt Wiletzko, I think he'll do really well for the Rams.
Solid pick. So we're still on the 218th pick, and you're up, Tom, and Paula and Tom. I'm sorry if I don't comment on some of your picks because I just don't have the knowledge on a lot of these guys that you have. So take that into account. My silence is not necessarily a reflection of disapproval. I'm going to read up on these guys that you're picking and educate myself before the NFL draft. So, Tom, you're up with the last pick, last in turn for the 218th pick overall.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go with a running back at this pick. It's a guy that again was more of a FBS guy from South Dakota State, Pierre Strong Jr. And he's not that banger that maybe they need right now. Although I think Sony Michel is still available, if I'm not mistaken, and who knows what they very well might bring Sonny back for at a nice number. But Pierre Strong, he averaged over 7 yards a carry, and it was FCS and so forth. But the games that he did play against the FBS guys he did play well. So I think I said FBS earlier. He was FCS mainly, right? At South Dakota State. He's just that home run hitter, and he doesn't have that great build and everything else, and that's why he would drop to this down to this pick down to this number. But I feel like he can really contribute. He'd be a great route receiver out of the backfield. He can get wide on the outside zone runs that McVay favors versus the up the middle stuff. And he's very good at picking holes, which is, in my opinion, after looking at tape, a lot of the reason why our run game struggled, and as well as some of those interior offensive linemen not hitting the right blocks in that zone run scheme. But I think we'll see with that type of injury history in the backfield and Henderson and the like, and injured every year. I think this could be he could contribute right away.
I think my camera lost connection with the browser. You guys can still hear me though?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah. Hey, so let's make sure I didn't lose track of our picks. Can you recap your picks for me, Paul?
Sure. So I got my buddy Luke Fortner in the first. He's an O lineman. Alec Pierce, wide receiver. And then I took from Fayetteville State. Hold on to make sure I didn't overlook anybody. Yep, Josh Williams.
The cornerback?
Yep, the corner. Then Brian Robinson, running back Alabama. And Matt Wiletsko, tackle, North Dakota.
Okay, so I was calling out the 5th round, and we haven't gotten to the 6th pick yet, number 218. I think I called it as a 218th pick. And how many guys do you have, Tom? Do you have 5 guys?
Yeah, I'm not tracking mine real well, but I can remember, Cam Taylor-Britt, Cam Jurgens.
I think I was calling the last picks the 218th. It was actually the 212th. And so we're actually on the 218th pick now.
Yeah, that's
sound correct?
Yeah.
And I want to make sure you didn't accidentally make an extra pick, Tom. Do you got 5 guys or 6?
No, he's good. He's good.
Good. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's got 5.
So the 218th pick, that'll be me, then Paul, then Tom?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I was confused because Tom just made a pick. I thought he might have made 2 picks, but we'll figure it out. It's all for fun anyways. If you come out of here with 9 players, Tom, good for you, huh?
That's right. I'll get the bonus pick, right?
That's an extra compensatory pick. There you go.
That's right.
So we'll start with the 218th pick. I'll make the pick, and then Paul, and then Tom. And I'm going with the offensive lineman, James Empey out of BYU. A couple of things I liked about him. One, he's mature. He's already done his mission. So he's a couple years older than a lot of these guys. A lot of people would see that as a drawback. I don't really see it that way. And another thing the reason this pick made sense from the Rams' perspective is his dad is the BYU offensive line coach. And that kind of triggered me. Oh, the Rams probably are going to love this guy. And he's solid. He's a good interior offensive line prospect. Again, in the 6th round, you can't. It doesn't have a real high bar, but see if they can coach him up and be a interior offensive lineman of the future as a couple of these guys that they have on their roster now become free agents. So that's what I'll go with. My second offensive lineman, James Empey out of BYU.
Yeah, solid pick.
Yeah, when you get to the 6th round, it's kind of you're just looking for difference makers, and they say, hey, don't draft for need. Yeah, you kind of got, you're either going to draft for need or you're going to find a guy that you think people are unaware of that is just going to kill it at the NFL level, a guy off the edge or a coverage guy or a wide receiver. But 6th round offensive lineman, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, solid pick.
So next up is Paul.
So, yeah, I'm going to go with that same theme. I think you hit the nail on the head. When you're in the 6th round, particularly latter part of the 6th round, you're looking for value, but you're also looking for the intangibles. So when you start talking about O-linemen, I definitely went O-lineman, build up the trenches once again. Let's go to national champions, University of Georgia, round 6, a nasty, talented guard who I think holds a ton of potential. They have him earmarked as like this mauler type, but he started all 15 games in Georgia's national championship season. I don't think he's your prototypical zone blocker. However, I think from when he gets some coaching at the next level, particularly from the Rams, I think he'll fit right in. He showed out at the Senior Bowl. He was named 2nd team All SEC this season. He has experience at both left and right guard, which I think is important. And as I watched him across the season, he just got better and better every game. His best plays ahead of him. He would bring a nice, nasty streak to the Rams O-line. And, when they were talking about him being just a mauler, just stuck at the line, do you know how many times this kid on a running play would run downfield, and as there's like this running back fighting in the pile, he would just belly flop on top of the pile? Like he would literally jump off the ground like a solid 3 feet and just belly flop on top of the pile. That level of athleticism. So I think he'll have no problem adjusting. And when you're getting a national champion at the 6th round, latter head in the 6th round, I think we pull the trigger. Justin Schaefer, he's my pick at guard for the Rams.
That's a great pick. That was my pick. And so again, great minds think.
Tom and I are right here. We're like symbiotic.
Love that guy. Yeah, that's a tremendous pick. Now I'm going to have to find another one. Oh boy. Well, I think at this point, rather than trying to fill holes, I think that we're going for best available at some of these later rounds. And and just in terms of my board, I have a guy who is first of all, I think Kyle Phillips from UCLA. I have a little bit of a UCLA bias, but I think Kyle Phillips from UCLA is going to go. I don't think it's a great fit for the Rams. Another Tutu Atwell type guy, probably a lot better than Tutu Atwell, but he's not my pick. But I think he would be best available on my board at this point in time, but not a good fit for the Rams. The pick I'm going to make is a wide receiver, Danny Gray from SMU.
Yes.
And just great speed, a great playmaker. He can just fly. He's just fast, but he's not tiny. And he's not huge. He's 6 foot, 185 or something like that. Just a great instincts as great hands and great instincts. It's interesting. He sort of made these plays. He's a great playmaker, but he didn't have that finishing, capability that you kind of need as a wide receiver these days, and that's why he's sort of dropping. His tape wasn't great, but she has all the skills as a kind of a team's wide receiver 3 or something like that. So he's best available. I'll go with Danny Gray, wide receiver.
And you know what's interesting, Tom? The Rams have one of their assistant coaches, I think Rashad Samples. He's ex-SMU. His last job was TCU, but he always says, I'm an SMU guy.
Yeah.
So that fits perfectly with that. So there is definitely a theme there. So that's a great call. I love that kid, Danny Gray. I love his rack numbers. Yeah.
So again, I already went with a versatile tight end and a wide receiver, which I'm not saying, but those aren't the Rams' biggest needs. But as we know, McVay loves him some receivers. So
the Sean McVay effect, even though you don't want to, you're forced to take offensive plays.
He just wants those playmakers.
And you know what's another interesting point, Tom and Mark, is that last player listed, Marquis Bell from Florida A&M, one of the Rams assistant coaches, I think his name is Kenneth Black. He is from Florida A&M. Marquis Bell is uber talented, and he dropped because he had a situation in the past where he was suspended or something like that, and that really hammered his draft stock. So, I'm wondering, because he would fit great with the Rams. He's huge, unbelievably talented. So they have a coach. They have a coach from Florida A&M there. This kid might wind up on our squad, and he would be a great pick.
Yeah, he was on my list as a potential pick.
Yeah. So there are a couple of players there that I think with the Kentucky connection, the Florida A&M connection, we also have an LSU connection. I think it's definitely going to play itself out of the draft.
Okay, we both got 2 picks left. This is the 238th pick overall, and it'll be Paul, Tom, and then myself. So you're back on it.
Oh yeah,
Paul, who do you got?
I love this pick. I'm going to go back to our secondary, add to our safety. 1A Thompson from Georgia Tech. Love this kid. Solid safety, starter since his sophomore year. Since he's been a starter, 195 tackles, forced 10 turnovers. Right? Great production. He ran a 4.55 at the 40. He's listed at 6'1", 215. Right there, big smile on your face in the 7th round, right?
Yeah.
Played all over the field. Right? They had him. They used him a lot, even in the slot. It was incredible. So they used him in coverage as well as run support. And this is the part that sold me. In short yardage situations, he was the extra linebacker. So this kid is tough as nails. Honor student, team captain, and he played on special teams. So he basically did it all for Georgia Tech. They call him a tweener. That's why he dropped down. But to me, a tweener who flies all over the field will find room for him. That's not a problem. I'm sure Raheem Morris will make it work. I think he'll be a Raheem Morris favorite from day one also. I think he'll fit in perfectly with Jordan Fuller, Nick Scott, and Tyrann Mathieu, because I know Tyrann's coming to the Rams. I feel it. He's going to be there. So I think it's going to be a very deep safety locker room for the Rams.
Good pick.
So you do think the Honey Badger is coming over?
I think he's going to be wearing blue and soul. No question about it.
Yeah. The rich get richer, right?
And the
okay, Tom.
Gap wide. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, Tom, you're up.
Yeah, I'm going to go with another lineman here, a guy, Jason Poe from Mercer.
Great pick.
Yeah, he's a interior. He's a interior offensive lineman. He can play guard or center. He's again 6'1", 300, but again, this guy he can move. He's like he was kind of I think he was on somebody's freak list. I forget that guy's name, but he's just very, very he's like an explosive mover. He can jump around. He can get outside in that zone block scheme. And he's just the kind of guy they like. And so I think they believe that you can teach pass blocking, but the run blocking, you have to have athleticism. And so I think that he's a good pick for them. If they can get a guy like Jason Poe at this number, I think it'd be a steal.
Yeah, he's a great prospect. And the coaches are just raving about, everybody who works with him just raves about him, that he's so coachable. Like his work ethic is amazing. So yeah, it's a great pick.
Yeah, some people are even talking about him in the backfield. That's how, as like a fullback, blocking fullback that can make some runs as well. So I can imagine McVay, salivating over a guy like this if he's still available.
Okay, I'm last up for this pick, and now I was doing some cramming just this morning, and I ran across a little blog about a running back out of South Carolina that this particular analyst said was perhaps the most underrated prospect in the draft. And I went and looked at some of his film, and I was like, wow, this guy is explosive. I'm talking about Zaquandre White out of South Carolina. I wanted a running back. I was tempted to take the BYU running back earlier. I was tempted to take Zamir White out of Georgia. But then I saw this guy, and I said, he's, when you watch film, you're always going to see the highlights, right? And you're not sure if you're getting a good sample size of what type of running back they are. But I saw enough this morning of this guy and reading what this one analyst had to say about him that in the seventh round, we need a running back. Let's add this guy. And he's a complete back, really explosive. He probably does have one drawback, is that he may not be a goal line back, that type of running back, which is something that I think we do have a need for that. I don't think any of our running backs have proven that they can be a reliable running back to get the ball to 1 or 2 yard line. But so I'm going to add Zaquandre White out of South Carolina with this pick. And like I said, I wanted to get a running back, and I waited to the 7th round, but I think I'm getting pretty good value here.
Yeah, he's a great pick. He's tough as nails. He's only been playing running back for 2 seasons.
So, was he a converted linebacker, right?
Yeah, they love him. He is just like, he's learning as he's playing, which is why they just love him. He's got really good instincts. Obviously, he's learning on the fly. His running mate, Kevin Harris, is just as tough as he is. He's also in the 7th round, South Carolina running back. He had a bad back injury, and that's what opened the door for White. But both of them. But I love both of their work ethic. They're tough as nails. Yeah, it's a great pick. Yeah, that's a great pick.
Very good pick, yeah.
Okay, we're into the last pick. Tom, and then me, and then Paul, number 253 overall. And there's a sample of what players might be available. We got Chris Garrett last year around this spot.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see what he brings to the table. Still not sure about that either. But what do you got, Tom? Number 253 overall.
So I'm going to go with I guess the theme for my draft is versatility. I guess that's what it looks like. I didn't realize that until I was given the bios of all these guys that I ended up picking. But we're going to go back to the versatility card with the last pick, Thomas Booker, defensive tackle from Stanford. It looks like all my picks are 6'3", 300 as well. So, but again, it's another stout guy who is enormously quick and athletic. He's strong underneath, getting underneath the pads. And he's the kind of guy who I won't compare no one ever to Aaron Donald, but he has the kinds of skills that we're hanging around with Aaron Donald. He could really take advantage of. So, he just doesn't have the skill set, and that's why he could drop down here. He didn't have a lot of the effectiveness, but he went, Stanford guy. He's super intelligent. Just because he went to Stanford doesn't mean he is, but he is. That's his makeup, and very kind of a mature guy. It is sort of that prototypical Stanford lineman. And the other thing that makes it really interesting is this pick is really interesting is that some people think that he could convert over to the other side of the line and play guard. And again, he has the exact makeup that the Rams would love at guard if he could make the leap, which is easier said than done at the NFL level. But anyway, could be a great pick at the end of the draft.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Tom, he's a fan favorite. He was, I forgot where he was, and there was a YouTuber who covers football. He was walking by. He sat down and had they filmed it. You should actually watch the segment. It's actually incredible. He sat there with the guy for like an hour just talking football and giving away things like, oh, I watched the knuckles on the lineman. And talking about being an intelligent guy. Everybody was looking around like, this guy is like a Rhodes Scholar over here when it comes to football.
Right.
He was so intelligent, so articulate. And then when you watch the tape, exactly right. You can see him. He can stack and shed. He can play the three. So, yeah, he's a great pick.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll still be there because he is sort of on some radars, but in this draft he's there. In this draft he's there, and I'm taking him.
Good pick.
So when I got to this point in the draft, I had two guys penciled in that I was going to consider, and at this point, one is an edge guy, Jeffrey Gunter. I already have an edge guy though, and the other one was Vidarian Lowe, the offensive lineman out of Illinois. I already have two offensive linemen, but I'm going to ignore that, and I'm going to go with one of those two positions rather than trying to find someone else. And I'm going to go with Jeffrey Gunter, Coastal Carolina linebacker. A lot of similarities to Chris Garrett. He forced a lot of fumbles. He's super quick. Mm-hmm. Maybe needs to prove himself against a higher caliber of opponents, of competition. But he's super athletic, like I said, and what the scouts like about him is that he does have a variety of approaches on his pass rushes. A lot of these guys coming out of college, they're speed rushers or bull rushers, one or the other. And apparently, Gunter does have a lot of tools in his arsenal. So I'll go with my second edge guy, which I'm not really thrilled about, but I like Gunter, so I'm going to take him.
Great.
Yeah, great athlete, and he's just a real good pass rusher. But it might also be the Rams aren't looking for high ceiling guys here. He's somebody that can step in and be solid right away.
Oh, I'm back on my camera. There I go. Okay. I think you guys are just afraid to criticize my picks, but that's okay.
Not at all. Not at all. That's a great pick. Actually, that was my pick. I had Jeffrey Gunter. Nonstop motor, positive work ethic, great intangibles, would be great in a rotation up front because he's got incredible size. 6'4", 260. He ran a 4.7.
Yeah, he has some measurables.
Yeah, so
I read a lot about these edge guys, and you get all excited about them, and then you see they're 235 pounds, and you're like, not sure.
So yeah, that's a great pick.
We're down to the last pick of our draft roundtable mock draft. Paul, what do you got? Are you going to pull someone out of the bag that we've never heard of before?
Oh no, not at all. So you lose out D'Angelo Malone, right? There's got to be somebody similar to that, and there is. And I'm going to go with my buddy, the pass rusher from Virginia Tech, Amari Barno. He got high grades in terms of he ran a 4.56, I think, at his what was his pro day or something like that. He has really good numbers. Played really well. Came out of JUCO. Played well at Virginia Tech. Not necessarily a strong team, but always produced. Always played hard. Great motor. Needs to work on his technique, obviously, but that's why they're getting drafted, right? So we just add him to that collection of pass rushers that we have. Another oboe replacement. I think he'd fit in really, really well. I love motor, and I love guys that can hit the edge and bend. So he fits that criteria, and he's tough. He's tough. He doesn't get, he's a smaller guy. He needs to bulk up, but he comes out play after play after play. Comes, very similar to D'Angelo Malone. So I'm going to go close it out with Amari Barno. I was very tempted to take, honestly, Bubba Bolden. That was my pick after Gunter. So now I'm like sort of second guessing myself. Bubba Bolden, his stock is dropping because of some stuff that has happened in his past. But in some recent reports in terms of interviews that he's had and everything else, people are like really speaking up and saying no, that he's a character person, he's a character kid. And, if I had a last pick asterisk, it would be Bubba Bolden. For him to be in the 7th round is an absolute crime. That is a really talented kid who could not stay healthy. But he's going to be a great player in the NFL if he's in the right situation.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about him in our recap coming up here in a second. I have some questions about steals and busts and surprises and those types of things. But so overall, how do you guys feel about your draft that you just did? I'll go first, and I think I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get a safety. Sometimes you just take the draft as it comes to you. And that's what I liked about your pick, your first cornerback pick, Tom, is that he can play safety. But overall, I think I'm happy with it. I just wish I had gotten a safety. It's kind of funny when you go to it's just like fantasy football and people say, hey, do you like the team you drafted? Well, you better like it. You just picked it, right? And obviously I like all my guys. I just wish I could have gotten one safety out of this group. How do you feel about how you did, Tom?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I'm just kind of looking back, recapping. I feel like I really focused on the positions of need. They really focused on the cornerback position, the offensive line position. Got some of McVay's favorites. The receiver. I got a tight end. That linebacker that can go in and out. A running back that can make plays. A defensive tackle. So I have an inside linebacker that can play outside linebacker. I have a defensive lineman that might be play offensive lineman. I have a cornerback that might play safety. So I think I really was able to kill two birds with one stone with a lot of picks.
And that allows you to
being a little facetious there because that's not necessarily the way to go about it, but that's how it turned out.
And that allows you to design your defense on a week-to-week basis, depending on the opponent as well.
Yeah, it should be interesting. So, I like that. I did not come into this looking for versatility, but I suppose what I did come into it looking for was athleticism and at every position. And, including even that defensive line position. And it turns out apparently that when there's a high level of athleticism, it translates, understandably into positional versatility.
And Paul, how do you feel about your team, your draft haul?
Yeah, I like the way it sort of played out. This what makes this all fun because there's that unpredictability element to it.
I feel like I stole two guys from you.
That's okay, but that's exactly right. But that means that they were solid picks. But absolutely, but that's what happens in the draft, and that's what's great about doing these mocks, which I absolutely love. Wound up with 3 linemen, a center guard, a guard, and a tackle. We said that was the primary area of need. So there you go. A lot of positional versatility there also. Alec Pierce was a surprise pick, right? Wide receiver, best player available. And when you do BPA, this is what happens, right? And now you have a 4th wide receiver that's probably just as talented as any 4th wide receiver in the league, right? In his rookie year. So I love that aspect of it. I love the developmental corner. I love that kid. I think he's going to be phenomenal. I think he's going to fit in perfectly with the Rams. Love Robinson as a running back. I think he's an absolute sledgehammer. I think he'll be perfect for the Rams. I love Thomas as that strong safety. If this actually played itself out, I would love to see these kids on the field like from day one, right? Just getting reps and closing it out with that edge with Barno. Why I love that kid when watching him on tape. Twice I heard from people that were evaluating him, they mentioned Justin Hollands. How perfect. What a compliment, right? I said, there you go. So there's definitely something to that. And that's why
he's a Rams player that really gets overlooked.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So if he's a Hollands clone, then that's success. I love the way the draft played out, and that's why I think best player available is the way to go.
Let's go back to this these follow-up questions here. I'll try the first one first. Who is my projected best in the first round? And you guys have probably heard this around the horn a little bit already. And I'm going to call out Kyle Hamilton, the safety.
Okay.
And I've seen some people still rating him as the top prospect in the draft, and then I see a lot of folks saying, "Well, we'll pump the brakes a little bit. There's some issues here." But what really gravitated me towards Kyle Hamilton, it's not so much the skill set, is that I just, in my opinion, if I'm an NFL GM, I'm not taking a safety in the top 15 picks. Period. And that's just how I feel. He could end up being a darn good player. But to spend a first round pick that high on a safety that has, especially one that does have some question marks, I hesitate to use the term a bust, but I think in a few years you'll look back and say, "Wow, we shouldn't have used that high of a pick on him." And I think he's going to go in the top 10, if not higher.
Well, that's your Ram nature coming out in you, because the Rams would never pick a safety in the top 10, let alone the first round. So
Right.
yeah, as Rams fans, we're programmed that no, our safeties come from the end of the draft, and we're certainly not going to pay one a lot of money. And so far, so good. We've been successful doing so. So I can see how you feel that way. Safeties are certainly devalued, and sort of they're the next version of the running back who has been completely devalued, and isn't used to get picked in the top 10 all the time, and no longer. So totally see where you're coming from there.
And who's your projected best, Tom? Do you have one?
Oh yeah, I have one. My projected best is Drake London.
Oh boy, look at that! Every Jet fan right now is jumping up and down and angry.
Oh, I've been talking to the Jets fans about it, and but a lot of those guys also want Sauce if he drops.
Yeah,
but
that'd be great.
To 10. But no, I Drake London. This is a guy who I think he's played one, maybe even just 2 years of football only. He's a terrible route runner. He's obviously he's projected top to 10, 15, whatever it is, because of his athleticism and his size. But he's a basketball player. Not that a lot of those other guys weren't, but I mean, he played competitively in college, and and then he finally just focused on football. But it's kind of, and they say, well, if everybody knows it's coming to you and you can still catch it, that it means something. And I don't buy it at all. I watched a lot of those games. I watched him go up for a lot of jump balls. He has an Allen Robinson. He's kind of a poor man's Allen Robinson. Throw it up and I'll go get it. But he doesn't have any of the wide receiver skill sets that Allen Robinson has, not by a long shot. And I feel like he could be a good maybe second or third rounder, but as a top wide receiver going over all of these other enormously talented wide receivers, I don't see it. And I don't see that type of wide receiver even playing out in the NFL right now, unless you can do a lot of the other things that you need to be able to do, otherwise known as run a route. And I just don't see it. So I think that's going to be a big bust. And I'm actually pretty confident about that one. It's not a long shot in my mind.
Would you be better if Drake London was being taken, let's say, in the 20s of the first round?
No. He's in. I think he's a. If I were, on my board, I might take just take a shot at him in the third or fourth round or something. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah, I just don't think he's going to.
Have you seen any other similar opinions on him, or
No, I
is this
haven't.
Tom's take?
This is Tom's take. I haven't heard one person who's doesn't have him in that first round set of
Wow.
wide receivers, and within the top 3 wide receivers taken. And I just feel like this is this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest, and I'm going out on a huge limb here, but one of the biggest groupthink picks that I've seen in a long time. And just go watch the tape. It's
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
run out to the corner, the biggest guy on the field, throw it up to him, and let him jump over the small guys. And that's really what it is.
Well, isn't that similar to 10, 15 years ago? I forget his name. There was a USC wide receiver with a similar skill set that flushed out of the NFL pretty quickly. Sounds like you're describing him. I can't remember.
Yeah, I
his
can't
name.
remember his name, but probably 10 or 15 years from now, they'll be doing a mock draft and asking the same question.
And this will be saved forever. Tom's take on.
Yeah,
and I'll go back and look.
I have receipts. Is that what do they say these days? I have receipts.
So who's your best, Paul?
So I was looking through it. It's different when you never have a first round pick to cheer for. So it's sort of like every first round pick looks amazing to you, but nobody really high up that I think is like really a bust. I just think there are 2 names that pop up a lot that sneak into the first round, which I don't really see it. And they're both tackles, Falele and Bernard Raymond from Central Michigan. I just don't really see these guys as first round picks, and I consistently see them in the top 32 or top 35. So those 2 would be the ones, I just, not necessarily calling them a bust. I just don't really see them worthy of that type of lofty draft status. But, like I said, one man's opinion. Those 2 for me, Falele and Bernard Raymond, to me, do not belong in the first round at all.
Yeah, I think the term bust is used pretty liberally. It doesn't have there's no standard definition of bust. I've heard players labeled as a bust, and I'm like, they had a decent career. Maybe they weren't worthy of their draft placement, but that doesn't necessarily qualify them as a bust, in my opinion. So I get it.
I will say this kid, Malik Willis, is, when you listen to him in his interviews, really nice kid, really balanced, a good head on his shoulders. I just hope that he winds up in a situation, and I hope he doesn't go like super high in the draft, because I think he's not going to get a fair shake. But if he winds up in a situation like Pittsburgh or something like later on in the first round, when you talk about the first round and how much the draft where in the first round you go and how it impacts like career expectations, I think he would be a great example of that, sort of like what you're talking about. I hope he gets a fair shake, because he seems like a quality kid.
Okay. Next question. Biggest steal of the draft. Does someone want to go first? You want to go first, Paul?
All right. My steal of the draft is just like you guys were talking about, like these running backs. They just get devalued and devalued and devalued. And I think one running back, Breece Hall is my favorite running back, obviously. So, but I think this kid Spiller out of Texas A&M, I'm like watching this kid just drop on the draft boards, and he is the best way to define this kid. He's a running back. He's not a 2-down running back. He's not a change of pace running back. He is a running back. You plug him in, give him the ball, and watch good things happen. And I will say this, because Tom was mentioning he was talking to some fans from other schools. So I will say this. I am scared to death that Buffalo, because they got all their picks, they walk away with one of these great running backs, they're gonna do some damage. They're already rock solid as a team with Josh Allen, who is just, the alpha quarterback in the AFC. But if you take a look at it, if they walk away with one of these great running backs, wow. So I think Spiller, to me, is going to be the steal of the draft. Somebody's going to get him and get great production out of their running back slot.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I'm a big Breece Hall guy. I think he's going to be amazing. Second round guy, but we'll see. In terms of my my steal, I think you're right. I think that right now everybody's number one quarterback coming out is Malik Willis, generally speaking, but I think Desmond Ridder is going to be a great NFL quarterback. He's he's smart. He has that mobility. He has the size. He obviously proved he's a winner in tough games. He moves well in the pocket, which is a very underrated element of having success in the NFL. And that's one of the knocks on Trevor Lawrence, right? He gets in the pocket and then he doesn't have that lateral motion. And when he goes to pass, he has that lungy, that kind of hop step lunginess to him. And that's one of the reasons that he hasn't been as effective, let's say a Burrow or some of these other guys. Obviously he's on even though his offensive line was better than Burrow's. But anyway, getting back to Ridder, he has the arm strength. He has all the poise, the leadership. He has everything you need. And I think I'm really surprised that he's not being talked about as a top quarterback. And in much the same way, I feel like Drake London is going to be a bust. I feel like Desmond Ridder is going to be a very, very, very good starting quarterback in this league for a long time.
Well, let me take a shot at this. I consider two running backs as my biggest steal. And my first one, he's not going to be my pick here, but Tyler Algier, the running back out of BYU, who I think could go as late as the fifth round. But the guy I really liked is Zamir White out of Georgia. Now he has some big injury concerns. He's torn an ACL on both his legs, but man, he is an incredible running back. There's just a big risk there, but there's a big risk with every running back, right? So if you get this guy in one of the later rounds, he could be a Todd Gurley type back for a couple of years, right? 2 or 3 years. I hate that. That sounds kind of mean, kind of a mean take that, he's going to get hurt again, but running backs, that's why these running backs are fighting for these big contracts, because, their careers are so short. But man, this guy, if it weren't for the injuries, Paul, you probably know, if he was coming in with no injury history, what round would he be going in?
Oh, he'd be right behind like Spiller. His nickname is Zeus, by the way. That's why I was shouting that out. So
yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
I was laughing because I love this kid too. He runs north and south, but the difference is, so he's like Sony Michel. When you watch him run, you're like, is that Sony Michel tape? Right? He hits the hole quick. He runs north and south. But if he gets behind the linebackers, he's gone. Breakaway speed.
Yeah.
He's tough as nails. But you know what's interesting? So I'm like thinking about drafting him, and I was saying, think about that draft room when somebody turns to McVay and says, listen, I have a Georgia running back with you.
Yeah, right.
He's got some knee issues, but I think we should take him. Do you think you're going to get thrown out the window or not?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
So,
yeah, it might depend on the round, though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, we're being facetious, obviously, with the Todd Gurley scenario. But yeah, if it wasn't for the ACL, he's had two, by the way. He's had two.
Right, one in each leg. Yeah, but that's
he's
scary.
Awesome. He's awesome. When you watch his tape, you talk about hammer. He's a hammer, and when he gets going, you can't catch him. He's not getting caught from behind, so he has that flexibility.
There's another Georgia running back that is pretty good too. Dalvin's brother, James Cook.
Right. And the Rams I think the Rams met with him the other day.
Yeah, he's just like the running back that I had picked. He's another guy that has that that kind of Henderson makeup, great pass catcher out of the backfield. Yeah. He's small. He's not that big guy, but again, just I think McVay love either of those Georgia guys.
Yeah, and I had all of those running backs on my board, but I had Saquandre, that running back out of South Carolina, in my back pocket. So I passed on those earlier running backs for that reason. So the last question, and I'll take this first, and this is a really hard question to answer. Who do you really want to see slip to the Rams? And the problem with analyzing this is it depends on what board you're looking at, right? There are some guys that you see going late in the first round. They're not going to slip to 104. But then you see some of these guys in another mock, they're going, mid third round. So maybe they will slip. And maybe I'm dreaming here. I seen this guy on one board recently. He was rated the 88th player overall. So that's 16 spots away from the Rams. That's Alante Taylor, the cornerback out of Tennessee.
Yeah, great play.
And the one analyst I read said that he might be the best special teams player in the draft. So I feel that's the biggest need for the Rams. And if this guy would somehow slip, cornerbacks don't slip as much. Usually the guys that are going to slip would maybe be a guard, someone like a guard, interior offensive lineman. Those are the guys that sometimes slip. But I'd love to see Alante Taylor slip. I don't think it's going to happen, but we can dream.
Yeah, he's a great pick. And you know who loves him? Charles Davis on the NFL Network. So that was probably the broadcaster that was talking about it. He talks about Alante Taylor all the guy. He says that's
Is there any way in any imaginary world that he would drop to 104? Or is that not likely?
I did his ADP because he's one of my favorites also. His ADP came out to this. Tell me if this sounds right. His ADP came out to 82.4. So that means he's going anywhere from like 81 to like 85, right in that.
So if in the right scenario, he could slip. And not likely, but
I think what's interesting is, and if you look at the way the draft plays out now, it's very different because I saw what Tom was saying about certain positions being devalued. So what happens is just like in every draft, there's a run. So traditionally now in the first round, there's a run on wide receivers, right? And then the second round, you get the run on running backs. And then the third round, it depends on whatever the hot position is. I think it's going to be edge or it might be corner. Who knows? So that's the way the draft plays out nowadays because of certain values being assigned to certain positions. Like you said about safeties, right? Because there are a couple of safeties that are in the top 30. Sometimes that you'll have like two or three, the kid from Michigan, the kid from Penn State, Brisker coming up as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So if Alante Taylor slips, I mean, that's a no-brainer. That kid can do it all. And he performs well. So, he gets targeted, they throw at him, he makes them pay. So he's not just making tackles. He can catch the ball. He's getting pass breakups. Like I said. So yeah, I think that's a great pick. If he falls,
yeah, it's probably not going to happen, but you
never know.
Just,
you never know.
Just looking at these draft boards, this is a tough question to answer. When do you want to take a shot at it? Is there someone else you're dying to see drop to the Rams at 104?
Go ahead, Tom. Who's your guy?
It is a tough question. I'm hoping that actually, my guy Britt drops. I've seen him in other draft boards and going at the end of the second or the beginning of the third. But the guy that I think would be on this board, he looks like he could drop. I don't know. I forgot where he was on this board in the 90s, but Kway Walker from, again, another Georgia kid. Just an absolute freak athlete. And again, going with my theme, he could play, and he's that really reachy inside linebacker, or he could go to the edge, at 6'4", 240, and just a freak athlete who has enormous upside. Just didn't have great tape, and just doesn't have the statistics. When you look at tackles and all those kinds of things, especially coming off that team, you'd think, oh boy, a guy like this. But this guy is just a freak athlete with enormous ceiling, and if he hits, if you could find a team that had an amazing inside linebacker that he could learn from, and some defensive linemen that knew what they were doing, that'd be
really Wagner and Aaron Donald.
That'd be a really good fit. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we have that. That'd be perfect. So
That's such a,
Anyway,
you picked such a great player for this question, right? Kway Walker was not even listed as a starter. That's how deep Georgia's defense was.
right.
This kid is not even listed as a starter in the original on their roster, right? That's how deep they were at every position, and he wound up playing. So yeah, he's just phenomenal. He's like we were talking about Justin Hollands, same build, 6'4", 240, can play anywhere on the field, can do it all. I mean, yeah, great pick. Yeah, if he's there for the Rams, he would be a solid pick. Absolutely.
Yeah. So don't think he'll be there, but again, this is the nature of the question, right?
Yeah, that's a great pick, though. Love that pick.
Who do you got, Paul?
So my thing is not so much who will fall. Well, I guess you could say that to some degree. I think they'll be there is if they're willing to take the pick on them is any of these running backs that I like. So like Brian Robinson. The other one is Hassan Haskins. Somewhere in this draft, they have to walk away with a power running back. They have to. They cannot go another season like they did last year with 3rd and 1 being Stafford calling for a quarterback sneak. The guy's not going to last through 17 games. But who will drop? I like these two running backs, Hassan Haskins and Robinson. Hassan Haskins, I think it's something like 443 carries, 0 fumbles. 0 fumbles.
Wow.
That's pretty incredible, right?
How do you feel about Algier?
So Algier runs really well between the tackles. Actually, the one knock on him was that he's a fumbler. I think he was number 3 in the country in fumbles.
Huh.
But I think he's a great, he's tough as nails runner too. I like Haskins and Robinson because they look like NFL running backs. They can bounce outside if they need to, but they're just monsters in between. They're both very raw. I think in a zone system where you just tell them, listen, run north, south, move those chains or put it in the red zone. You're going to put it in the end zone. I think they would flourish with this. And with Cam, think about that. Think of that backfield. Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, and you got Robinson or Haskins back there doing the dirty work. And think how many times in the 4th quarter you could tell Cam, have a seat. Let's get the young kid in there and let him carry the rock 10, 15 times and kill the clock.
Yeah, they have missed that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you talked about it last time. Remember in the podcast, you were like, I wish we had Malcolm Brown back
Right.
for those scenarios, right? And that
I love Malcolm Brown.
Yeah.
And he's
really
done nothing with the
back.
Dolphins.
Yeah. So you were prophetic in that one. But
Yeah.
I think those two running backs, if they're there, they drop to the Rams to a point where the Rams are comfortable taking them. Because like you guys said, they do devalue running backs to a certain degree. I think it'll help Cam. I think it'll help this offense. But those two, I absolutely, my list are 1A and 1B. Either or, I'll be very, very happy.
Yeah, I think I love those guys too, and I hope that, I think they will be there at some point for them. Those may be guys that you're hoping drop to the end of the, to the 6th, 7th round.
Oh, even the 4th, 5th. I think the Rams. I honestly think, just to jump to the next question, like Tom was saying, is that I think what's going to happen is I'm telling you, I think Les Snead, he might even move out of the 3rd because it's at the end of the 3rd and grab another 4th or 5th, and just like get a couple of extra picks. I think he's going to, drop those 7th and move up a little bit for there. I think he's going to be able to do that, get some higher quality picks. I think he's going to move around. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people, but he's definitely going to go for bang for the buck. I think you're absolutely right. And would you be comfortable if they were like there in the 4th round if the Rams took him?
I don't think they're gonna do that. I think they're gonna go later, unless somebody that's a really, really top running back drops to them. Somebody that probably won't drop to them, but that one of the couple, the guy like Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall or somebody like that, who are probably going to be in the mid-2nd round. But I think that those guys are going to be available later, though. I do. I think that those great picks. I just think they're going to be available later, and I think they're going to have other priorities with those earlier picks of theirs.
So last question, we said we'd talk about this at the end. I have no clue what's going on with Deebo Samuel. I don't know if it's a game being played by him and his camp, if he really is going to be traded, and if he's traded, where he's going. I just hope it's to the AFC. which seems to be the trend here. Great players getting traded out of the conference. Anyone have any inside information or opinions on what's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for the Niners to pull the trigger on this because I think they gave Trent Williams 45 million guaranteed, and this is obviously going to come down to the guaranteed money element of it. It's not a APY, but Debo sees himself as good as, if not better than the three guys that got paid, and so which is all they were all in the 65 to 72 million dollar guaranteed range. And he sees himself in that range. He sees himself as more versatile. He sees himself as just as good as a wide receiver. If he hadn't gone into the backfield and taken 20% of his snaps in the second half of the season last year, he would have been one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league. He was on pace for it. So obviously his yards after catch are right up there with Cup, and he's it's extraordinary. So he thinks he should get paid. The Niners aren't willing to go there. That means one thing: either they have a cold war with him for the next year, or two, and go go with the situation that the Steelers found themselves in with who's our running back? I'm sorry, I'm missing that.
Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell. Cold War situation where they're not going to pay him. He holds out. Then they try and put the tag on him and so forth. But what's interesting about this is that there's a big difference between the Le'Veon Bell situation and this situation, and that is that the collective bargaining agreement rules changed, I think this year, where maybe last year, where if there's a player holds out, he doesn't accrue the time, and so and that was a big deal. So anyway, he can't really just sit there and hold out, but he could do I have an injury and this and that. But anyway, he doesn't want to. He's not going to end up in San Francisco, in my opinion. He doesn't want to play running back. He doesn't want to be in that versatile role. He wants to be a prototypical wide receiver. He wants to be on the East Coast, preferably in the South. And I just don't see it. The only question to me, and he'll get paid down there. He'll get paid by somebody. The only question to me is what the Niners are going to get for him and how long they're going to hold out. But I do believe something will happen at the draft.
So is the negative reaction to his, I guess, sort of request because it's not a contract year for him? Is that what the blowback has been against him? Because I know he's made a couple of comments that he's received a lot of negative feedback from fans, etc.
I think it's just the Niners' way that they don't, take well the people not wanting to be there. There's a certain amount I just feel it's an affront, especially taking down in the media. That's a very proud fan base, and when somebody does that to them, especially somebody on a rookie contract, I think there was some blowback there, and they just feel like, oh, the guy has one good year and he wants all this, and you take down you make all these demands, but that's just not the nature. The wide receiver market's completely changed. This guy's a unicorn. Everything's different now, and the way he was used, he should get paid before he gets banged up. So I think there's a little bit.
And the other way of looking at it is if they are going to pay him that much, maybe they don't want to use him that way because he's more likely to get hurt. It's kind of a double-edged sword there.
Yeah. I mean, the reports are that he's not even negotiating with them. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be used like that. He knows that that's in Shanahan's DNA to use players however they want. He wants to use them. It's McVay's DNA also. Look how he uses Cup. I mean, Cup's when he's not catching the ball or running the route, he's he's sealing the edge and throwing his body around, and so it's just a different mentality between him and Debo. And
So you think a trade could happen this week? Do you think that's
it depends on what they get. The report is, if you know, in the inside report is that the Niners from the Jets, that the Niners are asking for quote a king's ransom, and that's their opening salvo. This to me, the Niners are pretty patient, right? They've shown that with the Jimmy G situation. They've shown that they're willing to go against what everybody thinks they should do, is just cut him and open up that $25 million. But instead, they're hanging on to him. You know, he's not going to be a camp disruption, but they're hanging on to Jimmy G because they feel like somebody's going to go down mid-season and they can get a really good price for him or something like that. So it kind of reminds me of a Ben Simmons situation in with Debo. You know, the Ben Simmons situation that Philly faced, and where they're just going to kind of hold on, wait for somebody to throw something really good at them instead of just caving it because the player says that's what they want to do.
Okay, I hate to. I feel bad wishing the worst on our rivals, but I would love to see Debo move on to the AFC. That would just make the NFC West seem so inviting to the Rams at this point. So much change going on with these other teams.
He's a phenomenal player. So I'm really surprised that this whole situation went south so quickly. So,
yeah, he represented 27% of their offense last year.
He's it's like, depending on how you look at it, it comes back to the same thing. I mean, the dude produced. He produced in every situation, and he was clutch. Yeah. So it's tough. You know, there's the business aspect of football is always the hardest part. We learned that with Robert Woods, right? So it's just a reality. I'm just surprised at how quickly this went south. Right? It was just like it went from 0 to 100 so quickly. Right. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I hope it works out well for both parties.
Well, the wide receiver market shifted so quickly.
Thank you, Christian.
And the Niners, have this. They're so patient about how they re-sign guys, very methodical. And I mean, they haven't re-signed. They haven't re-signed Bosa yet. They haven't done it. Extended, I should say. And so they're very methodical about how they do it. They like to do it later during camp in July and this and that. And all of a sudden they look up and the wide receiver market is completely gone bonkers.
Right.
And now that's what happened. That's why it went south so fast. And Debo said, "All right, guys, now's a good time to start talking. Yeah. What's your opening offer?" And I heard their opening offer was $19 million a year APY, and who knows where the guarantees were behind that? Probably in the 50, 40, 50 range, sort of the Trent Williams range. And that's when it was like, we're not even, that's the opening offer that is an insult offer, right? You can't come in with an opening offer that isn't at least, semi-respectable. And that's when it all went south. And they were giving an opening offer that they had on the books 3 months ago. And it's like, no, prices have gone up for that real estate.
And that's what's giving me agita too. And tell me if you guys agree. So let's say we do sign Tyrann Mathieu. We have OBJ sitting out there, right? And he's looking at this market too, right? And I'm hoping that the draw of playing with the Rams and running it back again is strong enough that he can, he might be he might get offers from other squads that might be just off the charts because, the prospect of getting the quality, that type of receiver, right? Even for half a season is just it makes the money worthwhile. So so that's where I have a lot of agita about OBJ. I'm hopeful that they get that worked out pretty soon, but the reality is it's probably going to take a little bit. But fingers crossed. So we'll see how it plays out.
Hey, before we sign off, hey Paul, so you do the Twitter Space discussions. Do you host those, or is that something you just join on a regular basis?
I try to join them. I haven't really hosted many because the spaces that I've been in, and Tom knows as well, they go on for a while. They go on a couple of hours where we literally as co-hosts will trade. Like, say, okay, I got the first 2 hours, you cap the next two because I have like other responsibilities, right? But yeah, the spaces have been great. They've been great. Tom has been on a couple of them. We have one that consistently has fans from other teams coming on in. It's always been very, very informative, and love hearing the insights from other, and just like we were talking about Debo and hearing from the Jet fans. I'm out here in New York. I love talking to the Jet fans out here. That's my like other team to root for. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. The Twitter spaces are really, really, and there's a couple of them that are, I would say, fairly consistent, like weekly for the last
Right.
2 months or so.
Yeah, I get pinged on them quite often, and I was just going to encourage listeners to follow you on Twitter and maybe join in on those. They're pretty entertaining. Sometimes they're really entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. At 42 Forever.
Right.
That's for my hero, Jackie Robinson, the GOAT. Feel free. I get a lot of really good feedback from the podcast that I do with you and Tom. I get a lot of really good.
You are so living on the wrong coast, I swear.
Hey, listen, the Dodgers started out in Brooklyn, so
Yeah, that's true.
Theoretically, I'm riding home. I'm riding home to be a Dodger fan. But
and Tom, I just wanted to mention real quickly how is the Rams Beat website coming along? That's a long-term
it's a
project
work in progress. I'll launch that before the season and start the regular postings there. With plan is for some opinion pieces, but mostly analytical pieces with a lot of video, analysis of what the Rams are doing, what their schemes are, and so forth and so on. So looking to drop that, and sort of kind of a then even potentially some YouTube stuff with some kind of all 22 watch along things, which we could definitely.
Good luck with that. We're looking forward to the website.
Yeah. And keep us updated on it. We'll be happy to push listeners towards it when it's ready to go. That sounds like a lot of fun. Any closing thoughts? I do want to mention that if you're seeing this on our new YouTube channel that we're trying to grow, you can also listen to it on our podcast, of course, LA Rams Up, the podcast. And if you're listening on the podcast, go check out our channel. We don't have a unique URL for that. Just go to YouTube and search for LA Rams Up. It'll show up pretty quickly, pretty high on the search results. Any last comments for either of you? And by the way, I will reach out to both of you. Maybe we'll do a follow-up after the draft, see what your calendars look like at some weekend in the near future. Not necessarily next weekend. Next weekend would be great. If not next weekend, maybe the following, and we'll review. Probably be better to wait a week so we can do some research on these draft picks, because it'll go into Saturday, right? We'll get together and discuss the draft picks. How do you guys feel about that?
That's great. I did have one last question though I wanted to get at before the draft with both of you. Is what's one big surprise?
Oh yes, I forgot about that question.
We were going to talk about that, and I really wanted to get to that with you guys, because that's a fun question to just sort of throw something out and see if it sticks. But what's one big surprise, Mark, that you think might happen during the draft?
I was trying to think of something. I was trying to think of something really off the charts, and my first answer was they'd draft 2 cornerbacks, but I don't think that's that much of a surprise.
No.
I would not be surprised if the Rams actually ended up with a couple extra picks and they drafted a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's Matthew Stafford, John Wolford, we're pretty happy there, but I just have this sneaky feeling that it may be time very soon for the Rams to start looking for their next quarterback. Maybe a little early. I don't know. We'll see how long Stafford plays out his career. I know he's got the new contract, but I'm trying to really reaching here. That would be a big surprise in my mind, but it wouldn't surprise me as much as it might other people if the Rams drafted a quarterback.
Oh my gosh! And then Stafford, would go Aaron Rodgers on the Jordan Love situation, and oh my gosh, we just have it's the last thing that would happen.
But Tom, what's your surprise?
My surprise? Okay, so if we go all the way back, Mark, to our free agency, pre-free agency pod, remember who I said that I thought they might cut?
Tyler Higbee.
Tyler Higbee. So I think the Rams might try and trade Tyler Higbee to get out from his number, $8-9 million, and they have some other good tight ends there. I think they might draft one, and I think, in other words, I think they might try and get out from under the cap number, Higbee's cap number, with it, which is what I had suspected they were going to try and do before. And in this case, wouldn't take the cap hit, maybe a small little dead money hit, but they have guys like Jacob Harris and obviously Blanton and Hopkins are sitting there. They might draft somebody, so I think they might trade Higbee and try and get I don't know what kind of a pick do you think they could get for Higbee, Paul?
I think the timing of it is tough because he got hurt last year, but I think he was having his best year. He was having a career year. So your point is, definitely relevant. I think they could get a third for him.
Yeah.
Really,
I think they could get a third for him also. And I think they could, somebody that really needs a productive tight end, his injury wasn't that bad. And they could, at that point, draft an offensive lineman that they really need, or a cornerback or they could package Higbee with a later pick and really move up. That might be even more likely. So anyway, some version of Tyler Higbee getting traded. I wouldn't be surprised if Tutu Atwell got packaged or somehow separately traded as well.
Do you think?
They just sort of cut bait.
That was one of the most traumatic draft picks in the history of the Rams.
Do you think the UCLA tight end might end up being on the Rams draft board if that happened? I love that guy, Dulcich.
I don't think so. I think that they're not going to. I mean, he's going. Where's he? He's projected pretty.
I think he'll be gone by 104 likely.
Yeah, he's not a
Unless
guy
they could move up in that trade scenario.
Yeah, they're not going to move up for Dulcich. They're not going to move up for that. I mean, they're going to move up for a need, and their need is that guard position and the cornerback position, and so I don't know, some combination of Higbee, maybe Atwell, some other picks from that they have down below, some of those fifth rounders, and move on up to a second round or something like that.
So Higbee and their late third, how far up do you think they could go?
I mean, they could get into the second,
mid-second.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the second, and find a cornerback or something like that, and it could be Atwell too. Yeah,
and they draft a tight end later,
and then they just pick up a tight end, or don't draft a tight end and go with our tight ends right now, which are fine. Yeah. Anyway, that's my. I'm doubling down on my Higbee's not going to be on the roster next year. Bet, Mark. I'm doubling down. I missed on the first one where they were going to cut him.
Tom's anti-Higbee initiative has been, how many months has this been now?
Yeah, I would love Higbee at a better number, but
but Blanton and Hopkins, if you had to roll with Blanton and Hopkins, maybe like a low-cost veteran there as well. I mean, you could roll through the season with that.
You can roll with that, and we all forget, that Jacob Harris is sitting there too, and I know that McVay said he could play wide receiver, but I think he said that while he likes the versatility of those kinds of players. What we like I keep saying, we saw Higbee isolated out wide oftentimes in those setups where there were the stack, where they played the stack, the three stack wide receiver on one side, Higbee was on the other. But I think he also potentially said it, for political reasons too. I think that Jacob Harris is going to get plenty of snaps at tight end eventually.
What's your surprise, Paul? You have one?
Just like what I said earlier, that Ram fans, don't be astonished, even though we're picking so late in the third, that to see Snead even move back a little bit more to get better picks in the fourth and the fifth. So just to get a higher quality overall, I don't think that's outside the realm. I mean, we're picking so late in the third. When we were doing our brackets, we sort of saw that, right? That, there wasn't much differential between the two. So, I mean, on paper, it seems like we have a third, but we really don't. It's so late. It's really like an early fourth. So
It's an early fourth, yeah.
I could see him doing that, and those 2 7s and maybe a 6 or something, moving up and trying to grab another fifth, whatever it may be. The quality of this draft is really 3, 4, and 5. Those 3 rounds are where this draft just kills it. It's awesome. It's so much fun. And when you run those mock drafts, right, those automated mock drafts, that's really, you look for those trade offers. You're like, come on, somebody make a trade offer so I can move up a little bit.
Yeah. So, do you see any trades happening for the Rams?
So, I was thinking about that. I was saying that, there are a lot of teams that are just desperate to get out from some players and stuff like that. But, with OBJ still unsigned and Tyrann Mathieu still unsigned, I don't know how much room they would be willing to play with until those two were brought in. So I don't know. But, I know, you were the Giants corner that you like, Bradbury, right?
Yeah.
So, he's still out there. Hunter is still out there. I don't know how Minnesota's even going to deal with that scenario. But those two, not so much Bradbury, but maybe more Hunter, seem like more mid-season type deals. So, I'm thinking the Rams might be comfortable just, taking advantage of, teams' desperation right now, and seeing if they can get a great deal on a player to bring in, even if it's, maybe a quality swing tackle even, right? But I think they would be wise to really wait until they get Mathieu and OBJ squared away, and then play like sort of that June scenario, like the Patriots do really well. All right, we'll see who's around, and they get those great veterans at like such a great price. So I don't know. So I'm really thinking more that Les will stick to his game plan, his MO, and he'll just get some quality players in the draft, use them to buttress the roster for next year and for the current year so that we have quality depth. And like I said, this is a 17-game season. We've played a month and a half longer than everybody else, correct? Apart from a lot of the other teams, right? Except for obviously Cincinnati. The Super Bowl was February 13th, and we just reported for OTAs, right? For the voluntary workouts. So there's been 2 months for the Rams offseason. So depth is going to be huge. You have to, that has to be a priority for the Rams. So this draft is going to be important. There may not be a lot of flashy picks, but building that depth for this year is going to be huge. We have a lot of guys coming off of injury. It's been a long season. It's going to be super, super important if the Rams want to run it back.
Last question, Mark. Sorry.
That's right.
Okay, let's all pick a team. Who are the Rams who's going to be there? The schedule is coming out. I'm not sure if we'll be back here. We may be back here before the schedule is released, but in case we're not, who do you think the Rams will host on the opening Thursday night football game?
Oof.
I think it has to be Buffalo or Denver, and I'd have to go with Buffalo. Although the reason I would shy away from that is that that's going to be a marquee matchup. In my opinion, the two best teams in the league right now. Do they really want to spend that capital on that opening Thursday? I expect it to be Buffalo, but who are the other candidates? Maybe Denver. I don't know.
My pick's the Raiders.
Yeah,
that would be great.
West Coast matchup because that's and I think that could be the
and what the reason I hope it's not is I love when the home team can celebrate with their home fans a game like that, and there's going to be so many Raider fans there. It's just going to be a zoo.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. I don't think the NFL cares about that. So maybe that's just my secret. One of the covert reasons I lean towards Buffalo. because I don't want that. Well, they opened up against the Cowboys one year, right? And they kind of had the same problem.
Yeah, well, the
So,
Cowboys are another potential, right? They have the
right,
Cowboys at home
right,
this year, so
right.
but Denver's probably a safe pick. With
Wow.
what are your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, so I'm hoping it's not Buffalo because I think that's a marquee matchup. Number one, I would love to see that later in the year. That's
Right.
also my Super Bowl pick, Rams and Buffalo. I think Buffalo's they're just a juggernaut waiting to happen. And if they get a running back, holy cow, look out. They need but I would like to see, just because I think it would be entertaining, I would love to see Russell Wilson come back. I would love
Yeah.
to see the Denver matchup. To me, it just plays out perfectly. The storylines are really, really, it's perfect for setting off the season on a positive tone, right? Russell Wilson, feel good story, resurrecting his career in a good place. Great community guy. I just think it works out really well. Denver's made some great moves. They put themselves in the talk for being a legitimate contender. I just think that storyline is just perfect. I think it's a great way to kick off the season. Everybody feels good. For me, that's the way I would go.
I agree with you. I think that's a good pick. And
Yeah,
then the
that could.
Rams and Las Vegas would be a really nice matchup for a doubleheader.
Oh yeah,
a doubleheader.
A Thursday night setup, that'd be great too.
A
Right?
doubleheader, maybe a Sunday or a Monday doubleheader or something like that. Yeah.
Las Vegas has made some good moves, I have to say. They've made some really good moves.
That's
Yeah.
a great
They're starting
team.
to look kind of scary, actually.
Yep. And and this will be the storyline come week, midway season, is that all these teams that put all that money into 3 or 4 players, what are they doing for the rest of their roster, the bottom half of that roster? That's what they got to pay attention to. And maybe I'll close on this. I wanted to share this with you guys, and I didn't get a chance to as I was going through it. So the Rams draft history, I was looking for some trends. Over the last 5 years, Rams have had 45 picks, right? From these 45 picks, they've been able to find 10 starters, 21 backups, 2 practice squad players. 8 have found their way to other teams via trades or cuts. Okay? Only 4 players of the 45 the Rams have drafted over the last 5 years are not in the league anymore. Only 4. So roughly 92% of all the Rams draft picks have wound up making the roster or at least sticking in the NFL. 92%. So when people talk about the Rams only throwing all that money at free agency, this is why they've been able to do that, because that bottom half of that roster have come directly from the draft.
Yeah.
92% of their players have stuck.
Yeah, John, you've talked a lot about that, about how the Rams have the top-heavy roster, but they also replenish it with a lot of, 5th and 6th round draft picks that perform. The bottom half, that bottom part of the roster is also very strong, given that they're late draft picks.
Yeah, I posted something recently about how the Rams had. I'm trying to find it.
It's also kept the Rams roster fairly young too. The Rams are always consistently in the top, I would say, 10 of the youngest rosters in the NFL every year.
Oh, here's a good draft stat for you. I named it the 770 Club, and so it's the number of draft picks that were paid $7 million or more per year last year, right? Who earned $7 million or more per year, meaning that they were, and these are obviously just veterans. So they were, they're solid players, and they played 70% or more of the snaps. There's obviously plenty of players who made a lot of money who aren't playing anymore, or were hurt, or who were just, dead money and things like that. So how many of a team's draft picks were active in the league last year, made more than $7 million? So they're strong contributors, and who played 70% or more of the snaps, meaning that they're, also were strong contributors. Number 1, LA Rams, 9 players.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
New England Patriots, 8, not surprisingly.
There you go.
And then Green Bay and Philly at 6, and then it goes down from there. And on the bottom, was the New York Giants had only one player that they've drafted that played 70% or made more than 7 million. Indy, one player, Houston, one player, and then so forth and so on. So again, it's another view into the strength of the Rams. Now, not all those players are on the Rams, right? And we know that they're a bunch of those guys are no longer there. I mean, obviously Goff and Brockers and some of these other guys, but anyway, another view into the Rams.
This has been really good stuff. I think we can call it at this point. We got a nice little mock draft under our belt. We'll have to be interesting to see how we did compared to how the Rams actually draft. And don't be surprised. History has shown that we'll be lucky if any one of us gets one or two correct as far as the Rams. Not that we're trying to predict what the Rams are going to do, but it's still nice if our mocks can align with what they actually did once in a while. But hey, thanks a lot, Paul. I really appreciate your time, and you too, Tom. I will reach out to both of you in the coming days, try to figure out what would be a good day to do a draft recap after the NFL draft and try to give some grades, so to speak, on how the Rams did.
That's great.
It's been great. Yeah. Always love sharing insights with you guys. My favorite rampagers across the country.
That's right.
All right. Okay. Have a good day, you guys. I'm going to sign off now, and stay safe and have a great Sunday afternoon.
All right.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.